Everybody, us welcome to another Friday news lunch from the Bucks County Beacon, where we try to keep it as chaotic as possible on this Friday. That's right. Got to bring the entertainment. Look, we got Dog in the house. Yes, this is Kevin Mahoney. And each week, we'll serve up the week's top stories affecting our communities and the nation. This week, it's time for another Power Lunch. That's right. I'm joined by Emily Smith, the owner and publisher of the Beacon. Not only will we be serving up this week's top stories, look, top stories, take your pick. I mean, some stories from this crazy week. Not only will we be doing that, but we'll take a look behind the scenes at the Beacon, see what's coming up, get Emily's perspective on things. We'll hope you join us live every Friday at noon right here on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, or on the Beacon's website. Just go to buckscountybeacon.com. You can join the chat live during the show too as well. We look forward to seeing you there. Be there. You got it? That's right. Look, we're going to need independent, community-supported progressive media in the weeks, months, and years ahead. There could not be a better time to take a moment to head over to Bucks County Beacon and click on the Support the Beacon button. Become a supporter. You could become a monthly, check this out, let me run this by you. A monthly entry-level supporter for as little as $1 a month, $1 a month. We got everybody listening to this show, everybody reading the Beacon, jumping in at $1 a month. We're going to be blazing trails here in Bucks County. That's right. You become an entry-level supporter for $1 a month, a regular supporter for $5 a month, or a yearly supporter for as little as $50 a year. Look, you can also drop a one-time donation to help keep the Beacon's critical lens focused and sustainable. Just go to buckscountybeacon.com, click on the Support the Beacon button. I'm trying to do it again. Become a supporter today. Well, let's see what we got on the menu this week, shall we? Okay, see if we make it through this. What are you doing today? How about joining today's economic boycott? Yeah, that's right. Or should we call it a people's economic blockade? I don't know. I'm mixed on it. Multiple calls have gone out to join others in avoiding buying anything from big box retailers and other companies who are being complicit with the Trump-Musk destruction of our country. Let's show our collective economic power, shall we? The call is to buy nothing or to buy local and use cash. Or take that money you would spend at Target, send it to the Beacon. How about that? That's a good idea. Great idea. Support local. Build. Trump, basically this stuff just coming in. Trump to sign an executive order today making English the official language of the United States. The United States has never in its history had an official language. Trump's going to come along and try to kind of change that too. Got faith in billionaires? Not me. Jeff Bezos kills democracy in the bright light of day as he lets everybody know that the Washington Post is now going to be 100% pro-USA and free market. Screw the rest of that reporting. Owner of the Washington Post and Amazon. Another reason not to buy anything from him ever again. No need to check your weather app anymore either. Nope, just go outside and put your finger in the air and see what's going to happen. Why? Well, Trump and Musk are now gutting the NOAA. That's right, the people who bring you the weather. The reason why we get updated free weather and news companies and our little apps give us the weather is because our government gives us that information for free. And now that's being gutted. How about that? People at AccuWeather are probably pretty happy right now because they're a private company who've been trying to take this over for a while. My guess, friends with the Trump crew. And hey, where are you at, Fritz? Yeah, Beacon editor-in-chief Cyril Michaleko reports on Brian Fitzpatrick's vote in support of Republican budget to bring deep cuts to Medicaid, CHIP, and SNAP programs. Where are you at? More than 200 Bucks County residents took to the street at the Tesla showroom in York Road in Warminster this week. Check out Leila Casey's reporting on the action in the Beacon. And that follows the President's Day protest in Doylestown, Sellersville, and around the region on President's Day. Yes, Mike Maney reports for the Doylestown rally against Trump and Musk's destruction of our government. Great new article in the Beacon by Terry Winkler on the history of the sanctuary movement in protecting immigrant rights and refugee rights in the United States, and how Trump is taking aim directly at that movement. I participated in that in college, actually, in Syracuse, New York. They had a really strong sanctuary movement there, working with those folks who were political refugees from Central America. I don't think we needed to be reminded now about how important the courts are. I think that's been solved and made that clear. Well, strap in because control over Pennsylvania's Supreme Court will now be up for grabs in this fall's election. In a special to the Beacon, Stephen Caruso from Spotlight PA and Carter Walker from VoteBeat report on the high stakes voters will face in the 2025 election. And look, if you didn't feel it before you started listening today, you're probably feeling it now. But if you're feeling dread about what's going on, an article posted this past week in the Beacon, Political Stress and How to Manage It. Well, in that article, Karen Sandus, a licensed clinical social worker, talks about how to manage your body's responses to the mental stress of what's going on. What is going on? What is going on? Emily, welcome to the Friday News Lunch.
Thank you. And sorry about my dogs barking. They're very excited for Friday News Lunch as well.
No, look, hey, we are pro dog here. We are 100% pro dog. We're pro pet. We're pro that this is the life that we are living, right? Yes. So no apologies needed. Yeah. So where are you at, Emily? How you doing? Where are you at in things these days?
You know, it's been a little stressful. I'm not feeling the dread like some people, but I have been stressed out. There's a lot going on, you know, in our world. It's hard to keep track of all of it and also do your job. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that is really the balancing act, right? I mean, it's kind of like how much do you actually pay attention versus actually doing something,
right? Right.
And I think that's, we were talking a little about this before the show today. It's like, there literally, we could sit here and just watch the live updates on the news and just read them in real time. Right. And that would be one thing, or we can actually do something that's like can contribute to stopping this stuff.
Right. And, you know, I've been hearing it all week from people. I had one friend tell me this week that she's put her head in a hole. She's not paying attention anymore. She's given up. You know, I had another friend who said, it's the handmaid's tale, and how can she possibly survive in her life? My damn dog.
Welcome everybody to this conversation. I'm telling you, it's good.
That's Pippa, just hey, so Pippa. Everyone knows. Yes, she heard her name. Now she's stopped.
There you go. Hi, Pippa.
Hi, Pippa. You're live.
You're live, exactly. She's like, I'm a star. Right.
She's pretty sure she's in charge of everything because she's half Chihuahua.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had another friend who was like, I have 2 young girls. It's actually a cousin of mine. I have 2 young girls, and all of women's rights are being decimated. And by the time they're grown up, they're going to not have bank accounts anymore. And they're going to, have to do whatever their husbands tell them. And, they won't be able to have a job. And she like went down this path. And I was like, God, that dread that you're feeling for that is like way over what we need today. And the thing that I told her is the thing that keeps me going is that I know I'm actively participating and trying to change it and trying to save democracy and save America. The other part that I know is that my husband can get his citizenship in Wales. So
I see. You got an escape door.
There is, there's an escape door for many people. Yeah. You don't even have to get a citizenship if you can get a visa. And there's lots of places that will give you a visa to another country.
Yeah, it's like almost like do it now. Look for those visas. And really, I mean, I think we made sure one of the things we did, we made sure that we had our passports updated and all that other kind of stuff. And we did that last summer because like, okay, I'm going to go high prep on this one.
Yeah, we all have passports ready to go. But on the other side of things, like just there's a long line of pieces involved in the total demolition of American society.
Yep.
The whole government was built on checks and balances. We understand all of the flaws right now. And I think that a good way to look at it is there's a benefit to this, right? The benefit is that we can see the next weaknesses, right? We know where the next time something like this happens, we know how to fix it. As long as we can get through this part without, the total destruction of democracy and the rise of oligarchy and all of those things. And then my sister was talking to me last night, and she's worried about the economy and how Trump is crashing the stock market, and how she works for a charter school and how that's going to get destroyed by the state government. But then also, mortgages are going up, like because
Yeah.
taxes are going up, and like all of the economic forces that are upon us right now can be pretty disheartening.
Hmm.
But it's all about the way you look at things. I said to her, you know, someone always gets rich when the economy goes down. It's about whether you're willing to have that mental space to do that. Yeah, so that article that we wrote, political stress, how to
Yeah.
manage it, that was actually written by my mom, who is a semi-retired social work professional. She was pretty high up there in like social work directorhood. She was not allowed to say what hospital system she currently works for, so that is why it is not mentioned. Because she's talking about things that they don't want her to talk about, like DEI and you know Trump and
Right.
any of that, anything relating to politics. They're not even touching it, right? So it is one of the two or three major health systems in Pennsylvania, as a note. Um, and anyways, her article is really interesting about fight or flight, which also has freeze, flop, and fawn, I think.
I think that's
But it's
right.
really interesting. It's about everyone's different reactions to these stresses, which I've seen through all of these different people that I've
Yep.
talked to this week. And it's just like, whoa, I have the other reaction. I'm like, let's go do something.
Yeah. I think one of the good things about that piece too, as well, is all these different reactions that you mentioned. I think I really encourage people to go check that out, because I think even in the identifying of the reactions, that there's a benefit to that, right? I mean, be able to kind of say, okay, this is not like, it's not just me. Like, this is not an abnormal reaction. This is a reaction to this thing, right? This is the way our body responds to these things. And that's what it is, right? I don't want to, get like all kind of like, Buddhist on you here, but like, this is like the rise and fall, right? You allow that feeling to kind of be there, right? And then, but don't let that take over, right?
Acknowledge it
Right. Acknowledge
and
it
then
and
let
kind
it
of,
go.
right. Exactly. And it's kind of like, that's the kind of like, we are going to have these feelings, right? And when we have these feelings are perfectly normal. They are a part of what it means to be alive as a human being.
Right.
And then there's like stuff on the outside, then there's, but that doesn't mean that we have to choose to stay in that space. Right.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, there's lots of books that you can read about this kind of
Yeah.
stuff, but like it's like a lizard brain response. It's comes from your amygdala.
Hmm.
And we have different pieces of uh, responses that our mind uses. There's like a first line, which is like the amygdala response, which is like lizard brain, super basic. And then there's like it transfers other thoughts over to an area where you have to think and, critically think about things. So it's a fight in your mind that you have to acknowledge where it's coming from so that you can then critically think about it. So,
Exactly. And I would say that, one of the things too that I've been very conscious of, in that, both for myself and in the way that I'm interacting with others, is to say, you know, because this is a range of normal responses, to try to kind of keep that grace in responding, right? Because it's, like, I remember, and again, I've done a little removal of myself on social media so much lately, because I'm focusing on where I think I can be most productive. But I just, because part of what I wanted to avoid for my own brain was this, the kind of, the accusation and blame about this person shouldn't have this, or they, and this back and forth and immediate responses. Whereas, like, look, if we're going to survive this in a very productive way and come out of this in a really fighting, positive lane, then this is an opportunity as we're having those responses, right, to be like kind to others in that, right, and not blame them for having a response, right, not say
Right.
that, well, then you should be doing X, Y, and Z. No, look, they might need a little bit of a pause, but you can be
Right.
there for them to offer the hand when they're kind of like, want to join back in. And I think that back and forth about, the essentials of community building is so critical right now.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
It-
So everyone's just gotta, chill,
yeah, and recognize that,
compartmentalize.
yeah, and recognize it's not easy to do, right? I mean, to recognize
Yeah.
that like the chill part of it, necessary and hard,
Yeah.
right? So,
I
but
mean, chill
to
is
be
my
there.
vibe, so it's very easy for me to chill, which I think is why I can run the beacon without too much like losing my mind, because I'm good at chilling. But I know a lot of people aren't good at chilling and compartmentalizing what's, outside forces that they can't control.
Yeah, I'm
If
on
you
the
can't
other end of
control,
that. Yep. I mean, my thing is to rate. I mean, that's kind of like what is kind of like is like literally to just kind of like hand to hand combat is, the way I've, I thought I literally was telling somebody this week is like, I made a conscious decision this time round, right? After this election, not to be doing hand to hand combat again.
yeah,
Because one, it's like anything. You go into it with the idea that you're in a boxing match. You're going to be exhausted by like the fourth, fifth round, right?
yeah,
And when a round is 12 hours,
right,
right? It's not going to cut it, you
yeah,
know.
absolutely. No, I completely agree. I mean, you pick your battles, right?
Yeah, yeah.
When
And
you
then
need to do
really
hand to hand combat, go for it. But most of the time, pick your battles.
no, and it's like, look, you want to be able to be at full strength when it's time for the hand-to-hand combat. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
That's the whole idea. I mean, I keep on thinking about myself, this is how to do this. And I have to say it's really good to see what we're saying right now is not like not unusual that you see a lot of people very conscious about that, seeing more like reporting on it and messaging about that, which is really good. I've been listening to the Ink, which is reading and listening to, it's Anand Giridharadas' kind of newsletter. I really love his work, and he's been having these kind of just some open discussions, some discussions with like scholars of autocracy and things like this. But and they're oh, sorry, man, weird lighting stuff going on here. There's and they frequently talk about this too as well, and like starting each one of their shows even with things like, hey, let's check in, where are you coming from, both like where are you, both like in the country geographically but also emotionally and in your community.
Right.
Nice little check-ins like that I see more and more people doing, which is really good.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's valuable, you know.
Yeah. So let's keep on this positive move, right? Things that people are doing and can do. Because today, of course, is this call went out for a 1 day of an economic boycott, that could be national. And initially it was kind of like buy absolutely nothing today, right?
Right.
Was the initial call, like just do not, like, refrain from spending any kind of money. That's been kind of modified and kind of grown. It's like, look, let's let's buy, if you're gonna buy stuff, you're gonna go to a restaurant, you're gonna go out to dinner, if you're gonna do this, do that locally, right?
Yeah.
Avoid the big box stores. And then people have been putting up the list of the people that are the biggest, like, co-conspirators with Trump and Musk in the terms of the destruction of DEI, destruction of our kind of government, who've been willing players. Like, I canceled, for example, my Washington Post subscription this week, that I had for years, and that's no way am I going to participate. And I think that this is, like, again, some people are naysayers and say like, what are you going to do one day, you're going to stop by. I said, no, but if you don't need to look at it like that, like, this is an opportunity to make a statement. And I keep on thinking like, why not every Friday,
Right.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. I actually today, Cyril asked me to buy a book for one of our writers who reviews books for us. And he sent me the Amazon link, and I was like, damn it, today's the day. I'm not supposed to do this. And then I was like, okay, bookshop.org.
Yep.
And then I went to bookshop.org and it was twice as much money. And I bought it there.
Yep.
Like I was like, I hate to spend the extra money, but we can't support Jeff Bezos. I mean, it's tough. I do want to say another thing about this,
Yeah, please.
because I saw some link that was from like some Heather Cox Richardson fan group thing. I don't know, with a list of companies that are somehow co-conspirators in Project 2025 or supporting
Mhm,
this one bad actor,
mhm.
right? That's somehow involved with Project 2025. Goods Unite Us, or I don't remember exactly what it is. But I saw it this morning in my local Democratic committee group on Facebook. And the reason they put it on there was because it said Hershey. And they're like, yeah, Hershey. So what those people didn't know was that I know the person who hands out all the philanthropic dollars for Hershey.
Mhm.
So just as a clarification, Hershey's not saying anything on this, but it's not called Hershey Products. It's called the Hershey Company. Number two.
Let's get it right
Number two.
first.
No, they don't. They're a very, very ethical company. They have a very, very strong vetting process for any kind of political campaign contributions that they give to, which is in their government affairs section, which is separate from the company itself. It's C4, and their philanthropic giving is obviously, for C3s and stuff like that. And then, it's just very important to know that, like, even if you think it's vetted, some list like that you see on Facebook, it's not necessarily true. You know.
Right. I mean, I look at it like this: is for me is the way I got my head around. I mean, again, I've been involved with boycott stuff before. Usually, when you're targeting particular companies, and usually that's around some sort of worker organization and things like that,
Yeah.
and a whole bunch of stuff like that. And these broader boycotts. I mean, I'll be honest. When I first saw this, I'm like, okay, here's somebody that's got a good idea sitting in front of their computer, and we're going to put it out there, right?
Yeah.
But when you see this thing catch fire a little bit, I said, okay, like maybe this is actually we have an opportunity here. And the way I tend to think about it is that instead of trying to vet lists, right,
Yeah.
to try to figure out. I mean, look, there's some bad players, right? I mean,
Yeah.
the fact that Target kind of turned around and kind of canceled all these programs, I think that people are feeling that in ways that are different than Walmart because most people know Walmart's shit,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
Target has made a show of it for like decades
Yeah.
that, they're inclusive and they're
Yeah.
supportive and we're a community player. And so I think that hit people differently
Hmm.
in ways. But I mean, I guess the way to turn that around is like, well, what if we thought about, this is an opportunity to kind of just what you did, right? You buy this book. What's the reflex response we go to?
Right.
Click to Amazon. Wait a minute. What if I replace that Amazon kind of like bookmark with bookshop.org?
Right.
Right. And that becomes kind of like a habit. What if I said instead of going to a Starbucks, I went to my local coffee shop? What if
Right.
that means and really consciously choose to make sure that we're investing this day, right? And when if we're gonna spend money on local stuff. I
Right.
mean, that seems like to be productive. And also like if we thought about that as something that potentially, I mean, here's some people talking about this, making this an ongoing thing
Yeah.
where every Friday we use this as an opportunity to come back and focus on community. That seems like awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like Small Business Saturday, right? It's the
Exactly.
same concept.
Yep.
And I'm really lucky to live in an area with lots of good small businesses that I can go to buy the things I want.
Yep.
Um
A lot of
but
people are not.
yeah, but it's really easy to go to Target or Walmart, or you know,
It is, but that's
it's
it,
really
right?
easy. Yeah.
That's the choice, right? Choice is convenience or
Hmm.
ease over like look, I was having this conversation
And
with
cost. It's also an expense
well,
thing.
and cost, right? This is where I mean, this is just we get to some of the limitations of like, okay, we have to really this is where like shaming each other is not a good thing.
Right.
I don't think productive
Yeah.
because look, I mean, especially
Some
you
people
just
can't afford to shop
keep it
local.
exactly.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree. It reminds me of, I was listening to NPR yesterday, and they had a story about factory farming. I think it was on NPR. I don't know. I was listening to something about factory farming versus like small farms. And it's always an interesting thing. Have been strongly against factory farming and industrialized farming
Hmm.
since I read a book from a Cornell professor about, food, and like 10 or 15 years ago. Have me remember the name of it. Maybe Whole? I don't know. There's like two different ones that he wrote, and I read both of them. But the idea is like factory farming makes us sick,
Yeah.
right? Factory farming hurts the environment, right? But going to small CSAs to get your food is very expensive.
Hmm.
You're not going to get everything you want or need. Um, and the transition of, I mean, it's just like this whole government thing, like of trying to make a smaller government. The idea of switching from industrialized farming to small, family farming is something that would take decades
Hmm.
to do, right? To be able to switch the food supply over to something that's more sustainable. But, as much as I can buy stuff from small local farmers markets, I do,
Hmm.
because like we have a farmers market in my town that everyone that is in the farmers market has to be from within 100 miles of where we live. That's where the food's coming from. So stuff like that
Yeah.
is healthier potentially. They might still use pesticides. They're
Yep.
not necessarily organic,
Right.
but it's the idea of like having cows eat local food. It's about getting honey from like the local area where the flowers are so that you don't get the allergies from the local flowers. There's all these pieces of it. And I think it's the same thing with small businesses. It's a hard transition when we've all been, accustomed to the ease with which we can shop
Right.
now, but, I think it's really important to try to prove the power of people and the fact that these big businesses wouldn't exist without us as the cogs in their wheel.
Right. And not just the cogs in the wheel, right? Without our tax dollars.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, let's be clear, is like part of the reason why that factory farming can be a thing and continue to be a thing is because the gigantic subsidies we give them,
Yeah.
like in our government.
Yeah.
Right. So, to right to your point, right? I mean, shifting the way that we do food or,
Hmm.
or pick your, segment of the economy, right? The way that we shift those things, right, are not just are like collections of individual choices. It's just like climate change,
Yeah.
right? Yes, it's important if you can to put in
Right.
an LED light bulb as opposed to an incandescent bulb. Yes,
Yes.
those individual things are important and matter and are part of it, but that is not the solution, right?
Right.
Like we are never going to get enough people and enough companies to voluntarily change their light bulbs to have an impact on climate change before everything goes to shit.
Right.
So what do? Well, you do a both and, right?
Right.
If possible, you invest in those habits that are going to be about what happens afterwards, about the future we need. And in the
Mhm.
meantime, we have to focus on where the resources are by shifting policy, by building power, and say that no more. Because you want local farming to survive, guess what? The money that is currently going to giant agro businesses in the kind of like, the endless cornfields in the Midwest need to start going to the families down the street,
Yeah.
right? And that is a policy choice that is made at the state level and the national level. So
Yeah.
we could do the both and here.
Yeah. As an example, my local borough council, we joined, I wouldn't call it a lawsuit. It's like an application to the Public Utilities Commission,
Hmm.
um, to do something that they've been doing in New York State, which is in Pennsylvania, boroughs have a different organization than townships and other cities and stuff. So we have the ability technically to choose our own energy. But we're asking the Public Utility Commission that we could choose what our default is
Hmm.
for our municipality. And in doing that, we could choose renewable energy that is, you know, within Pennsylvania, which would help
Hmm.
Pennsylvania businesses, but it would also decrease our energy costs because the energy isn't coming through credits from
Yep.
like Arizona or some shit. You know what I
Yep.
mean?
Yep. Yep. Yep.
So I actually think that there's a Bucks County borough that's involved in it too. There's like 9 boroughs in Pennsylvania that are in this thing with the PUC that's currently getting sorted out. So I'll keep you guys posted on that. But that's something where like if you can get the local municipalities on board to do things where we can make a change for the entirety of our 9,000 people that live in town, right?
Yep.
Because if the default isn't PPNL,
Yep.
if it is instead what we choose, it turns out most people, 90% of people don't change away from the default because you have the choice to choose where your energy comes from,
Hmm.
which me and my husband choose where our energy comes from in our household.
Hmm.
Um, but that's mostly an economic choice. But it turns out that when they were doing this in New York, I wish I could think the name of it right now, but when they did it in New York, they found that most people were getting like 20% savings. Most communities were getting 20% savings over whatever the previous default was, like PPNL or Con Ed or whatever.
That's awesome. I know in Percy, Percy still has its own electric, right? So it's
Right.
owned by the municipality, which,
Right.
and this is one of the things that, I'm thinking, okay, borough council is definitely going to be absolutely critical kind of in the next several years. I mean, there's been
Hmm.
some great folks who've been elected to our local borough council, but even thinking about that as, this needs to be preserved, right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, once you especially if you have an existing power, like, power company that we paid to the borough, right? That's more of a defense, right? You want to keep this thing and keep the
Yeah.
control and ownership over this so you can make those kind of decisions within it. But
Right. Yeah.
yeah,
Absolutely.
no, I mean, just God, so much, so much, so much. I think there's so much. I was going to say something else, but I can't remember what it was. Um, yeah. So I think that this it's just a
Oh, I
really
just thought of
cool.
what it was called. I'm sorry.
What was it?
It's
Yeah.
called community choice aggregation.
Hmm.
That's what it's
Community
called.
choice aggregation kind of rolls right off the tongue. It's almost like a bumper
Yeah.
sticker. Yeah.
Well, and we have like we're doing another thing that's called Solar Neighbors United. So we passed a climate action plan a year ago, and it's got some pretty lofty goals for our municipality. But it's really hard to meet those numbers with individuals within the community. We have to do bigger things. So Solar Neighbors United is working all over Pennsylvania to get groups of people. So it's like a co-op,
Hmm.
but it's only for bargaining purposes to go bargain with solar companies to come as long as in like some defined geographic area they can get 50 or 60 houses, then it's a better price
Hmm.
to get the solar on their houses, so it's like bargaining, like it's the same idea as this economic blackout. We can prove the power of the people if we actually come together and do that,
Right.
and that's how you can make a difference. So
Very cool. Very cool. So a couple things. It's just kind of, I mean, I'm curious. I mean, I don't know. I don't know why I want to talk about this, but I guess just want to hear before we get into some more local stuff. But they, I thought Jeff Bezos. I mean, I'm thinking about talk about local versus like global, right? I mean, here we go. I mean,
mhm.
what we're doing here at the Beacon, right, is kind of ground up, right, community built media that is vested in the community's well-being.
Yes.
And we just saw Jeff Bezos, right? I mean, ironically, during the first Trump administration, when he bought the Washington Post, changed the masthead to read "Democracy dies in darkness,"
Yeah.
right? And now just basically comes out and says, well, we are not going to allow any criticism of the United States government or the free market because we rock, right? Got that? That's the new WAPO. Here we go.
Right.
WAPO, right? It was like,
Yeah. We all love America and free markets, and that's
Yeah.
all you can talk about on your opinion page.
Right. And that's it. And that kind of like, again, like, governance by fiat in the private sector. Here we go. But I mean, could you have a better contrast? I mean, between what trying to do here at the Beacon, kind of continue to grow at the Beacon versus this kind of control over our media in this environment, and how uncritical what's going on at the Beacon is, especially in the face of something like that.
Yeah, I mean, like as I've been working on like a bunch of business plan and pitch deck stuff, one of the things that I wrote that I thought was really important was we our reporters are reporting from within their own communities.
Hmm.
That is a big distinction, right? Like obviously people at the New York Times who are reporting about New York are reporting from within their community. But 95% of New York Times reporters are reporting about something that they are not,
Hmm.
invested in emotionally, physically, within their community.
Yep.
And I think that makes a big difference. Um, there's a lot going, there's a lot of crazy stuff happening with, Trump and journalists right now. I mean, it's really disheartening to watch the big media organizations be okay with it.
Yeah. Kind of
I
roll
mean,
over.
like, and like, I'm not saying that Joy Reid losing her show on MSNBC was because of Trump, but I also feel like it's stark, right?
Yeah.
It is stark to watch that happen.
Well, Joy Reid, Alex Wagner, right?
Yeah,
Two of the primetime women of color who were kind of
yeah,
on that show. I mean, come on.
right, right. It's not cool to see, and it's like how much does money matter from like big investment
Yeah.
ideas, like none of the money is worth it for me, like to do that kind of thing. Like what's the point in reporting the news be
Exactly.
if you can't be what you say you are?
Yeah, and this is where, I mean, principle ultimately matters. I mean, are you gonna? I mean, that I had to say, when I was, again, as soon as Bezos said he was going to buy the Washington Post, I was immediately like, this is going to end in disaster. I mean,
Yeah,
there's no other way that a billionaire buying a play toy is going to end in disaster.
yeah,
But there was like this moment, right, where that masthead, when it changed, democracy dies in darkness.
yeah,
I thought, like, holy shit, imagine if there was more of that, right?
yeah,
These are our principles, and
right,
this is what we stand for on our masthead.
right,
And obviously, obviously Bezos doesn't give a shit about any of that, right? And this
right.
was all about his ego to
He
begin with.
didn't write that line.
Yeah, right, exactly. But that's the idea, right? The idea is that, okay, what do you stand for? And
Yeah,
then what are you willing to fight for in
yeah,
order to preserve certain things?
right,
And so I keep on coming back to, again, I hate to, just constantly bring this back to this local and bring it back to what we do at the Beacon. But the idea is, like, if there's the outrage of just what you just said, Joy Reid, Alex Wagner, a whole bunch of staff, and all the staff that are going to lose their
yeah,
jobs as a result of that. Let's be clear.
mhm,
The people who actually do the vast majority of the
yeah,
work of building those news stories and those programs, all going
yeah,
to lose their jobs.
yeah,
All that stuff, and incredibly diverse staff, I should say, too, as well.
yeah,
The So instead of getting caught up on the social media spin about what's happening at MSNBC, that's like, for me, it's like, okay, I want my immediate reaction to be like, okay, back to the Beacon, right?
yeah,
Or and again, or choose your local institution, right? You know what I'm saying? Is like,
yeah,
if these are the things, it's like, look, I care what's happening to media writ large.
yeah,
But what is it that I have any kind of sense of control over or ability to affect? It's not MSNBC's decisions. It certainly
yeah,
is what happens here in Bucks County.
yeah. And if everyone that read our website every month gave $1, it would cover our cost per month by itself.
There you go. BucksCountyBeacon.com. Hit the support the Beacon button. You can become a supporter for as little as $1 a month. It's true.
Thank you for teeing that up.
Yeah. I mean, look, I when I first started doing podcast stuff, and when I first started Raging Chicken back in the day and was working that stuff, the thing that I hated doing more than anything else is asking for money.
Yeah.
Right. And I just, I seriously, I just have, it is, I'm constitutionally not built for that. Right. And I'm not saying I don't, I'm not like living in a fantasy world that believes that money just grows on trees or something like that. It's just like, that's not the way I'm oriented in the world.
Yeah.
And what's changed is saying like, well, look, we have to do what it's going to take in order to make sure that we build out these institutions, because there is nobody coming to save us.
No.
Right.
I mean, NPR, who knows? All their public funding may be gone.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
Like, I mean, the Times will be fine.
Yep.
But is that like, like that? Yeah. Local journalism is super important. And it's the thing that keeps people informed about the things that are really affecting their lives, whether they know it or not. And I think that's the important part, is that people need to know where the problems are actually coming from.
Yep.
And where the solutions actually exist.
Yep. Absolutely.
I can't do much about what Trump is doing. I can't do much about it. But I can do stuff on a local level with what we have,
100%. And this is all the more reason why, again, we see in the pages of the Beacon and local organizing that's going on. I mean, Cyril's just because article after the budget vote, like the GOP budget vote, was just absolutely phenomenal. And like, this is the kind of holding our representatives' feet to the fire that has to happen constantly. Right now, Brian Fitzpatrick, again, we've talked about him extensively, his big PR machine and all this stuff. He avoids at all town halls, will not talk to his constituents.
Well, now none of them are going to have town halls, so don't worry.
No. Right. So all that stuff, but
that's over for Republicans.
Right. But we need the record of what is going on, that Brian Fitzpatrick, his cloak of kind of like moderateness, just voted to gut Medicaid, to gut SNAP benefits and all this kind of stuff. And look, he's going to come out and say, whoa, we didn't vote for that. I said, no. What you voted for is to tell an agency that they have to cut this amount of money, which is impossible to do without gutting Medicaid. So don't play the game with me, Fitzy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the kind of crap that that is happening with people like Brian Fitzpatrick, that, Cyril, and obviously, I mean, we see like awesome work that's going on. Kirsten Zolfold, has been on this like nonstop, right, for years.
Forever. Yeah.
That's got to happen. And then, you know what? I've been thinking a lot about this too, as well. So, okay, where do I want to also kind of direct this stuff? If we know we're never going to see Brian Fitzpatrick, you know what? We've got a bunch of state representatives, right, that are from our districts, right? And you know what? We could say, well, yeah, but they're not responsible for what's happening in Washington. No, you know what you do? You say, look, this is what Brian Fitzpatrick does. He refuses to do this, and it's going to come back us to the state. What are you doing to protect us? Right. You're our representatives in our state house. What are you going to do? And these people, I guarantee you, will be unprepared for that response. Yeah. And we need to push on, because seriously, he's like, our last line of defense right now is going to be in our Pennsylvania State House and our governor's office and things like that. That's what we've got to hold the line there.
I literally said that to my cousin the other night.
Really?
I literally said, if everything turns to trash because of Trump, at least right now, we have a democratically controlled governor's office and state house. We don't have the state senate, but 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Yep.
2 out of 3 ain't bad. Like we have to hold that, but that is literally our protection. Because okay, if you take this like far out, okay, California stops contributing to taxes, like Maine stops contributing to federal taxes, like that could happen. California's not going to ship any food to the rest of the country, something like that, right? If something like that happens and we fall apart into 50 states again, and we're sovereign states, we're okay.
Yep.
We're not the best, but we're definitely not the worst. Like.
Yeah, and we're in a position, like you said,
we're close to New Jersey.
Yeah, we're close to New Jersey. It's just like a river, and there's bridges there for now. For those bridges may not last very long, but
Right, right.
I will tell you is that I've been across those bridges relatively recently. They've done a whole bunch of repairs on them, so they're structurally sound a little
Thank
bit
you, Biden.
longer. So yes, thank you, Biden. Exactly. Build back a little better because they didn't get what they wanted, but whatever.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that's a cool thing to be thinking about. Is like, look, who's in our PA kind of state house, who is in our PA Senate, who are our local representatives, right? We don't need to wait for the next round of midterm elections to do this. Is like right now putting pressure upon those people that are currently sitting in that office, and to support the ones that we elected.
Right.
Right. I mean, Tim Brennan right here and kind of in Bucks County, right? I mean, we should be saying like, pushing, I don't mean he's not doing anything. I'm saying like pushing him to
No,
say,
he's doing a
hey,
good job. Yeah.
he's doing a great job. I mean, I
Yeah.
want to be clear. I'm not criticizing him because
And
I
you're
think
doing a
he's
great
like,
job.
yeah, he's doing good. Way to go,
Yeah.
Tim.
Yeah.
But like contacting him and say, yeah, continue to push in the state house, right? We're behind you.
Right.
How can we help? Right.
Right.
On the way, and then to heading out to kind of like Greg Stats, right? It's like, wake him up from his nap and then kind of say, like, Greg Stats, what are you doing here? And put the pressure upon that guy. Cause I'll tell you right now, he's like getting by a whole bunch of like, oh, I'm just a kind of good local guy and blah, 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 and keeping his head low. No, go right at
Yeah.
him.
I mean, living across the river from the Capitol, I don't have a lot of respect for a lot of people in the state house because I used to bartend for them when they're sitting there with the lobbyists getting their dinners paid for.
Yep.
We have a whole section of town in Harrisburg that is 10 times more expensive than anywhere else because it's where the government people go with their per diems, you know? So
Yep.
I think, any kind of any any kind of holding them to account is important. I think the midterms are going to be very important,
Yes.
as always, more so as the federal stuff has problems. But I think the most important part is right now because we are in the petition period for local elections and judicial races.
Yep.
So it's all the school boards, it's all the borough councils.
There's mine right there.
Yeah.
Judge of
Yeah.
elections running again. Yes.
Yeah, it's borough councils, school boards, township supervisors, and then district justices, court of common pleas, the state supreme court. All of those are up this year, and if you don't think that's the most important thing that happens in the government, you're missing it.
Yep. 100%. And I think like, I'm looking at kind of regions around there. I'm looking at our kind of, what does it mean to kind of prepare for that? Yes, look, there's everything that you'd expect in a midterm election and need to do this, but that doesn't mean we need to wait till the election kicks off. That means like, for example, PA State Representative Shelby Labs, right? The 143rd district, right here, kind of like, kind of in my district, we can show up at her office and say, what the hell? Right?
Yeah.
What are you doing to actually protect us, secure kind of Medicaid benefits? What are you going to do about kind of protecting our education, like for all this stuff when they're going to eliminate that? How are you going to kind of ensure that kind of disability rights and access to services are going to be continued in our schools, right?
Yeah.
She's not going to be prepared to answer those questions, right?
No.
You show up at her office, go to Representative Craig Stats, the 145th, right? Show up at his offices, right up in Quakertown, right around the district, right? And in Harrisburg. What are you going to be doing here? We could go right down the list. Joe freaking Hogan, right? Kind of push on these kind of people. And like, again, now is the time to be raising Cain about it, right? And so get their name right now associated with the destruction of that is happening all around us, so that when those candidates, whoever emerges from kind of on the Democratic side of those tickets, they've got a groundswell already in process, that people know the names of the enemy. I don't mean enemy in terms of like wartime, but the people that need to be voted out.
Right. If they're not voting to protect us, they're voting to destroy us.
Exactly. Yeah. And if they're not speaking out against the destruction, right, then they are complicit with the destruction.
Right. Okay, let's talk about judges.
Yes, let's do it. Oh, yeah. Big time. Go ahead.
So I think it's very important to note that the judiciary is our last line of defense. And Trump did a pretty good job when he was in office last time
Mhm.
of seating a bunch of judges on benches throughout the country.
Yes, he did.
So generally, what I say with judicial races is there's always retention for judges that have been in for 10 years. This is like most of the judiciary from Court of Common Pleas up, I think, are retention votes. And the thing I normally say is don't vote, like always vote no on retention.
Mhm.
This year, I would like to amend that.
Okay, here we go. Everyone, stop the presses. Everyone needs to listen. Write this down. Amendment.
Yeah. Vote yes on retention for our Democratic judges in Pennsylvania, please. We need to keep them safe. We need to keep them on the bench. This is not a time to to sort that out again. You know, this is it's very important for us to vote yes on our Democratic judges that are
So,
already
and I want to
seated.
be clear. So, if I'm, am I right about this? The judges on the Supreme Court is a 10-year term. Is that correct?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
I
I'm
think
looking
I
at,
think almost all of them are 10-year terms at like Court of Common Pleas up. I think they're
yep,
almost
yep,
all
here it
10 years.
is. I'm
Yeah.
looking at the article in the Beacon. By the way, you can go and find this information in the Beacon, right? That this piece from Stephen Caruso and Carter Walker, going through a little bit about some of the background and some of this. So in there, yes, full 10-year term. So one thing I want to point out is this person who gets elected, or in this case, retained, will
Mhm.
be on the PA Supreme Court when redistricting happens again.
Yeah.
If you recall, back in the day when everyone was not paying attention, when the Obama administration sold out the states, sorry for all you Obama fans out there, but didn't pay attention to what was going on. Republicans had the red map campaign. They had their judges and their state houses aligned so that
Yeah.
when that census came through in 2020, and they were going to have to do redistricting, constitutionally mandated redistricting. Let's be
Yeah.
clear. Like, I don't mean gerrymandering, although that's what they did.
Yeah.
Redistricting is just part of the constitutional process, right?
Yeah.
So
Because populations change.
because populations change and people shift from districts, that is a total normal thing to do redistricting. But how that happens depends upon who controls the state house, right? And the judges ultimately who are sitting and overseeing that.
Yeah.
Last time, it was the only reason that we didn't have a horrific congressional map was because of the PA Supreme Court.
Right.
And so the retention of this judge this time will be sitting there because the next, do the math, everybody, right? 2030 is going to be the next census. That means that this judge will be one of the ones who will be sitting there, right, when that redistricting happens. If you want to create firewalls, you have to think ahead when it comes to the court stuff. This is why this fall is so critical.
Yeah. Yeah. Not just the PA Supreme Court though.
No. Sorry, I didn't mean that yet. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. 100%.
Also, there's federal districts in Pennsylvania that see court cases where, I don't know, let's say right wingers uh, think that their rights are being violated, um, and they put frivolous lawsuits against municipalities. That goes to federal court
Mhm.
in Pennsylvania.
Yep.
You know, there's federal appeals courts and all the Pennsylvania courts. All of those are very important because it's how we. There's like so my uncle is a lawyer and I had a conversation with him a year or two ago about the way that the judicial system works throughout the country. And it works a little bit differently in Pennsylvania than in a lot of other places. But he could literally tell me out of all the federal districts in the country for like federal appeals courts, he could tell me which way each one of them would decide whether it was right or left,
Right.
you know. But the most interesting thing that he said to me is that court cases get brought to test laws, right?
Yep.
Laws get created, cases come to test laws. And in order for it to go up the chain it has to fall into those categories of a law that's been tested and it's called unsettled law, so they will keep bringing it. And like in the case of the little town I live in, we had this sign ordinance lawsuit, which was a First Amendment case, and it went to the third district, and we lost a First Amendment case. The and it cost my community a bunch of money for something we would have changed in our ordinance. But the point is, there was already other court cases that we had based our ordinance on to try to protect it the way that they had written the law. And you never know because it depends on which court it goes to.
Yep.
And that's, I don't know. Judges are important.
Yeah, they're very important. We're seeing that actually right now with a whole series of cases that are being brought. What's interesting is that we're seeing Republicans have had this strategy for a long time. I'm off the top of my head. I cannot think of the district, but it's down in Texas. It's like the 5th district. Is it down there? I don't want to misstate it, but it's like they
That's where they bring the cases.
Right. They purposely bring the cases there, and not just in that general district, to specific judges in locales that will get a ruling that they know that judge is going to rule in such a way that will set them up for potential challenges down the road.
Right.
What's interesting right now, there's some court cases that are going through that you have lawyers who are bringing the cases in different districts to push back on what we're seeing at the federal government, right? So in Massachusetts, I forget which district. I'm horrible at remembering these districts, but in Massachusetts, there's several cases that are going forward. There's some ones I want to say in like outside DC and stuff that will go to the different circuit. And even though there's mixed justices there, some are Republicans, some are Democratic. The difference is that they know that they're judges, right? They're not just political stooges,
right.
That they're actually interested and invested in writing good law, so that the things and then that's going to get appealed and it's going to go forward, and it makes it more difficult for these right-wing folks to kind of have any inroads, and it makes it better to have better precedent by which people at other municipalities can kind of, just like you say, draw on their policy.
Right. Yeah. And I think it's important to note, like, there's, depending on what law it is that's getting challenged through the courts, is whether it goes into the Pennsylvania system or whether it goes into the federal system. So like the one I was bringing up was a First Amendment case. So it went through the federal system, which is mostly appointed judge. I think they're almost all appointed. That's like Trump appointed like a million judges. But in Pennsylvania, we have the voted in Pennsylvania judges, and those are for more specifically laws that are in regards to Pennsylvania law specifically, and not the Constitution of America, of the United States, if that makes sense.
Yep, 100%. And I think, one of the things that benefits, look, again, we all have our feelings about Joe Biden and kind of what happened in the campaigns and all this stuff. But one of the things the Biden administration was extraordinarily good at, or they did, did a very good job at, is making sure that they appointed tons of justices. Lots and lots of federal judges, and for one of the most diverse, and I don't mean just diverse in terms of like racially, ethnically, gender. I mean also in terms of the kind of law that they practice. Right. I mean, it had been historically the case, both Democrats and Republicans would almost always appoint like corporate lawyers or prosecutors to these judgeships. Now you have defense lawyers, right? You have people that are civil rights lawyers that are being appointed to this stuff, that are in a much better situation to hear cases that we need to be heard right now. So.
Yeah. I mean, having a diversity of opinions on any court is super valuable.
Yep.
Just like anything, anytime you can put a diversity of opinions together to discuss and decide on something, you're going to do better.
Yeah. So unless you've got kind of like an all-knowing God sitting in courts from there that knows everything about everything, chances are like there's huge gaps in what we can do as in any individual human being. So the more people you got from more different perspectives, the better you're at, especially for judges.
Yeah.
So great. So I want to give a couple quick shout outs before we hear what's kind of happened in the Beacon, where we're going forward from here. But huge shout out to the folks that turned out on the President's Day for the rallies in Sellersville, in Doylestown. Great reporting on that in the Beacon. and all around, say Bucks County, all around the state and stuff like this, is getting to standing up and kind of say we're not all in on this kind of government takeover. As I've been saying to people, kind of no kings, no petty tyrants. This is that was that big action at that point. Also, just a excellent action. Over 200 people showed up outside the Tesla dealership or showroom, because they're not technically a dealership, a showroom down in York Road in Warminster, to basically call out Elon Musk and his actions and push back against this. Great reporting again by Leila Casey in the Beacon on that. The more eyes we can get on the actions that are actually happening, the more that's going to encourage more people to come out.
Yeah, trade in your Tesla if you have one. Trade it in.
There you go.
Yeah. I have a friend that has two. And she's like, I'm just going to get a bumper sticker. I'm like, that's not good enough, girl. That's not good enough. You got enough money. Go buy a Rivian.
Oh, God. Awesome. So yeah, good shout out to all that work that's going on for us there. So Emily, before we close out, I want to see a little bit about, what's things coming up in the Beacon, things that kind of you foresee, things that you want people to pay attention to, or anything else you want to leave us with today.
Yeah. I mean, I'll say number one, I think it's important for everyone to know that we operate on a very small budget. I'm talking very, very small in comparison to other local news organizations near us. Very small, a third or less of what other people operate on. And I get a lot of flack for sometimes our website not loading very quickly. And
Emily, can you please pedal faster?
As the technical lead of the Bucks County Beacon and officially a developer, I am a website developer. I have been for a long time. There's lots of stuff about this that is not known to people, and they think websites just work. Websites don't just work. And so recently we were exceeding our server, and we did an upgrade. And we doubled our server size and our RAM speed. So I hope everyone notices that the Beacon is loading faster and less broken links. And I hope you all like that. That is number one, to help that, but also to give us room to grow so that we can build our upcoming, redesign and the Cumberland County Beacon and those things. So I think that's exciting news. I have been in talks with someone who's going to take over our bookkeeping. And that's very exciting. We have an accountant, but this is someone who's going to manage lots of different accounts. We have a lot of things going on that obviously have financial implications, and I can't be that person too. As you can tell, I have too many jobs here. So we're working on that. So that announcement will be forthcoming, but it is in the works. And we're about to set out to find rich people in Pennsylvania to support us. So if you know any rich people, email me, Emily@buckscountybeacon.com. If you are a rich person, Emily@buckscountybeacon.com. Also, we recently, this is so funny because this is all the like droll business stuff that people don't think exists.
Right. Yeah.
We just got a very high powered CRM, customer relationship management software, called Newspaper Manager. Shout out Mirabel Technologies.
Whoop, whoop.
It is robust, and it is to start selling ads. And we have been going through the training process with Allie that works for us now, directing our ad sales. We've been going through the training together for the last couple weeks, and we put our rate card in there yesterday. It's very exciting because we're moments from being able to invoice someone.
I'm just saying.
On the platform.
Yeah.
It's very exciting. And we are looking for progressive businesses who would like to advertise with the Beacon. So if you or someone you know is one of those progressive businesses that would like to advertise with the Beacon, email Allie, ALI, at buckscountybeacon.com. And then lastly, we have a special episode of The Signal coming out on International Women's Day. Um, International Women's Day is one of my favorite things to celebrate because I am a woman. And I think it's important to shout our achievements from the rooftops. So I have a very good friend from high school who is a very, very smart woman. She is a professor of medicine and genetics at Boston University, and she heads their God, I don't know what the program is called. I should have this written down, but I don't. She heads their like DEI program, that the way that they train doctors to be conscious of bias
Yep.
in their work. So she came out with a book called Where Biology Ends and Bias Begins. And so for this special episode, I interviewed Shamita. Her name is Shamita Dasgupta. I interviewed her about her book, and we talked about DNA, chromosomes. It's fascinating.
Cool stuff.
I am not a scientist, but I used to pretend to be one in high school. And I read her whole book, and it was challenging, but I very much enjoyed it. So check out that. It's going to come out on Saturday, March 8th for International Women's Day. Should be good. And go buy her book, Where Biology Ends and Bias Begins.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. So lots of stuff. And I got to give a shout out to, Cyril and stuff that we did on the Signal over here. We had extra episodes this month for Black History Month. And that, the more content we can bring forward with just amazing work that's happening all throughout our community and around, the better. So,
Yeah.
so, take this week, you're going to be waiting until March 8th for that awesome episode to drop where you're going to hear Emily as the interviewer. Like,
I don't think I'm very good at doing that job. Shout out Cyril. But whatever. It's always fun to wing it.
Yeah. Well, there's different styles too. Cyril's really good at the kind of like, he's got here's the questions that are getting to different aspects of things like this. And it's like, I'll tell you, it's a joy to kind of edit those episodes and to produce them, because it's like, like rhythm, how this is going to work,
Yeah.
and all this other kind of stuff. I never would go back and edit when I was doing my interview show. Would never go back and edit it because mine are kind of like this.
Right. This is how I exist in the world.
Totally. Yep.
And I had a written list of questions, and it screwed me up, and I was bouncing all over the place, and I was like,
yeah,
next time maybe not. But they were really good questions.
Well, you can fold them up in a little card and send them to her and say, this is the kind of just for you. Crazy. All right, everybody. Well, look, I appreciate everybody if you kind of joining in, kind of checking stuff out. I'm going to remind you again, you got to share this show out. Let everybody know about the Friday News Lunch. You're going to go join us, become part of this community, part of our discussion on kind of every Friday where we kind of look back at the week's news. Check out. So go ahead. Sorry, Meg. Go ahead.
You reminded me of something I wanted to say. I was checking all of our social media stats, and I just want to say that we could make some money for the Beacon if we could get 1,000 subscribers on YouTube and 1,000 subscribers on TikTok. So please just go subscribe. Don't just listen. Subscribe. That's like our baseline. And then it's actual listening hours too, is really important. But we have like 119 subscribers on YouTube, and I think that's sad.
I think we can get that. Yeah, this is something. You know what? I'm going to start putting this in the shows, that because this is one thing that was always on my standard pitch when I was doing Out the Coop podcast, to say, kind of subscribe to the show and hit that notification bell so when we go live. Right, those two things could be really critical. And look, here's a little secret for everybody. Right, you can go subscribe to a YouTube channel. Right, even if you cannot. Right, go there weekly and kind of watch to it. You just hit that subscription button. Right. Literally, you can take it right now, go to YouTube, right? Bucks County Beacon, go to that page and hit subscribe, and then close the window and walk away. That's what you need to do, right?
Yeah,
And those things really matter. I'm
they
seriously, I
really
can't even
do.
tell you how important that is. Just to be able to get, I mean, we could talk about, for a whole other day, talk about the way that algorithms work on these things and talking about what it means to be able to monetize in these different sites. I mean, and all these things are based upon people like you who just, tune in, check this stuff out, want to support it. And all you got to do is hit that subscription button and it helps tremendously. I can't even tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, great. I'm glad you brought that up. So we're going to fold that in and going to push that out too. So the goal is for the month of March, 1,000 YouTube subscribers, right? Put that on your kind of to-do list, everybody. Make sure you're subscribing to both Friday News Lunch and the Signal, or just go to the Bucks County Beacon and just click on the subscription button right there on the YouTube page. You subscribe to everything. You're all great.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. It's great.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. So remember, look, we're going to need, obviously, if it's not completely obvious, we're going to need this kind of media, independent, community supported, progressive media, the weeks, months, and years ahead. Go to the buckscountybeacon.com. You can become an entry level supporter for as little as $1 a month. As Emily said, if everyone who reads the Beacon puts in $1 a month, all the costs are going to be paid, right? I mean, that's how, that's what it means to be community supported institution. You can become a regular subscriber for $5 a month, or look, hit that year subscription button, $50 a year. I mean, come on, what a bargain. Or if you got a big chunk of change that's just burning a hole in your pocket, you can come drop a one-time donation. Just go to buckscountybeacon.com, hit that kind of support the beacon button. Beacon, I cannot say that today for some reason.
Yeah.
Support the Beacon button and become a supporter today. All right, everybody. I wish you everybody a great weekend. Emily, I hope you have a great weekend. I know you're kind of working like nonstop these days, but everybody have a good weekend. Make sure you do some self-care, take care of yourself and those around you. Be generous and kind, and prepare yourself for the fight, because we need everybody in the game. Everybody. This is Kevin Mahoney for the Bucks County Beacon. This has been the Friday News Lunch. Everybody, see you, Emily. See y'all.